the triangle of junglers of, Elise, Lee Sin, Evelynn, have typically at least one has been banned away in most games and the other two left to pick. And from there, a lot of mid focus as well. You can see already 2 jungle, 2 mid bans.
Yeah, so they're pretty sporadic in terms of what they're trying to ban out here. There's no completely concrete, ironed out, you will not play any champions this game. When it's back over to SK Gaming Prime, they're going to go for Braum. Again, we expected to see this banned or picked pretty much every game.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a really weird interaction that actually kind of means blue side for certain games will end up having to ban Braum out, even though you'd think being such a strong champion, you would expect it on a red side ban. There's a lot of talk recently about how red side bans are so predictable now that you really don't have any room for any kind of counterplay in the bans phase. Now, the Braum-Lucian synergy, if you don't pick Braum or Lucian in your first pick and both are available, they go to the red side almost 100%. We've seen Jax locked in because both are now not available in this game. And that's going to let Evelynn through for GSI.
Okay, well, Evelynn has been played previously in this tournament alongside Twitch, of course. I mean, as soon as you see he isn't banned, you're assuming he's going to get first picked, and that's exactly what's happened again here from GSI. So, back over to SK Gaming Prime. What are you feeling? Now that Lucian's been banned out, which AD carry? We've seen Corki a few times as a kind of counter pick to Twitch.
Yeah, that's something I'm kind of expecting tomorrow a little bit more out of the now alternate team. We've seen a lot of Graves. That's another big proponent in that bottom lane that has come back into it, had a very, very quiet Season 3. For the most part, very underpicked, very rarely played because of how good Caitlyn was. Now that we're seeing these kind of shorter range, a little bit more vulnerable AD carries, you've got these burst champions like Graves coming back into the meta, and alongside a Thresh, that makes it a kind of difficult lane for a Twitch, but there are a couple of options still available. You've got the Morgana that we've seen a lot in the support role, and Nami as well, still available. So there are still options on the side of GSI.
Yeah, plus one of the problems that Graves has, as you mentioned before, is being short range. If you've got Thresh that hooks you in, literally pulls you towards him, it's very easy to then land the buckshot and, of course, the collateral damage afterwards. But I thought for a second they were going to go for Morgana. Looks like they're caught in a few minds.
Yeah, they're kind of thinking about it. I mean, there are a few options here. They don't have the completely safe escape that Thresh would provide a Twitch. So it's very important that SK have picked that away. Otherwise, that really gives Twitch quite a strong laning and safe phase, because very difficult to kill a Twitch if Thresh and Twitch are playing properly. There's really very few situations that they should be caught out if Dark Passage is available. GSI are hovering over a Lissandra. Now, that could be a top lane. I kind of want to go back into my research and say Mozilla has played a lot of Lissandra in the top lane. Typically, that was a pick we saw at the tail end of Season 3, so I'm not expecting it in the current meta right now. And Nami makes a lot more sense. They've got Lulu, who's kind of that flex pick for the top mid kind of role right now. They're waiting for the counter.
And we also saw this exactly the same composition earlier today, where the Nami and Twitch combination is so strong because Tycall's Blessing comes in, and then you just get all the auto attacks afterwards. They were against Lucian, who could instantly E out of it, Relentless Pursuit out. Graves is going to struggle a tiny bit more, especially being short-ranged as well. He's more susceptible to being locked down from those auto attacks, and of course the Aqua Prison as well, because he has to come closer.
Yeah, now with the 2 of the 3 main junglers banned out, Elise, Lee Sin now no longer available. SK have got to look for a couple of options. I'm not expecting that to jungle Jax. It has been done. It's been attempted. Isn't the best. Yeah. Is still a possibility, but I'm not expecting it. Jarvan, they hovered over, far more likely. Has been a jungler that's come back into it. So has Vi. These kind of junglers that were at that tier a little bit lower, and Jarvan does get locked in. Alongside Orianna, the ball delivery system there is going to be a really consistent kind of engage in that team fight. And now it's down to GSI. Do they want to put Lulu in the top lane, who is going to do okay against Jax? Does fairly well, but Jax's scaling is exceptional, as everybody knows. Or do they put Lulu in that middle lane and look for something else in that top lane role?
I think it's a tough one, and you can see by their constantly flicking between champions that they're definitely not sure as well. I would love to see a Vel'Koz. Don't really see it happening.
Yeah, I don't see that.
No, that would be... If they did go for Vel'Koz, let's just play devil's advocate here and say they did. That would suggest Vel'Koz mid, Lulu top. Surely.
Well, I mean that's a possibility,
But
yeah,
no.
as you said, and I'm kind of more expecting, a Trundle here or something that can just kind of scale, alongside Jax. They're never going to match the scaling of Jax. I mean, Jax is just the monster of late game. So Trundle getting locked in makes a lot of sense. GSI here. To be honest, I think have a good composition for what they showed us earlier. We saw Heaver on Nami landing 2, 3, 4-man bubbles. So that's something that SK have got to watch out for here. Even though we said SK coming into this are perhaps the more favored team, I really think GSI still are in with a shot. It's just how they get their team composition to work.
And this is a pressure game as well, where they desperately need to win this game. Everybody else in their group has won one. They're the only team yet to put that notch on the belt. So it was Heaver indeed, with Twitch as well, from Crystalline that was played earlier and got the composition working quite nicely at bot. But unfortunately, if you remember, Lucian got that early double kill, so it's kind of difficult for them to pull their way back in.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, it was also the game where we saw a lot of that attempted kind of Twitch angle game where they were trying to come in through the side. I know also, Roughnecks, I believe, did it in a different game as well, but we've seen a lot of aggressive Twitch play today. And while it is possible, I feel like a couple of the teams are going to that well a couple too many times. At times haven't been exploited for it, but I'm really watching to see whether Crisland overstays his welcome at times, because I've really seen a lot of the Twitch players being very aggressive when they really are kind of in amongst 3 players.
Yeah, kind of overestimating how much damage and just how strong Twitch is as an AD carry. It is very, very strong, but you're not God. You're not, infallible. You are going to die if you get locked down, especially on an AD carry like him. They do have a nice comp to go around him, though. Trundle can peel and also can get on the back lines and alleviate the pressure from Twitch. And they have Lulu. And that's another key thing. Like Lulu's wall growth with Twitch on rat-a-tat-tat, that's scary to play against.
Yeah, it's something that's going to be a dynamic as we go along in this game is that typically you'd expect GSI to have very good scaling here. They've got Twitch, they've got Trundle, who will scale pretty well himself. Over on SK's side, you're going to have champions that are going to have a lot of utility throughout the game. Orianna always is going to have Shockwave, and in the late game, that is going to start doing a lot of damage. Jax, we already talked about, late game damage. Champions like Graves, like Jarvan, not so great in the late game, but it's the fact that when you put the pieces together, it's Jarvan Cataclysm into Orianna Shockwave into collateral damage, leaves Jax to clean up. And from there, if the team fight goes in SK's way, Jax will clean every single kill up there.
It's a lot of pressure on Smitty J's shoulders, though. He has to perform here, otherwise his team could be in all sorts of trouble. But you can see deep in thought there, other players.
Yes, indeed. Deep in thought. We are in the delay period for now, guys. So we've got a couple of minutes just until we are into game. I believe it's about a minute left on the timer. Just a clarification, because it was something that we were discussing about earlier on when we were going into SK's first game. Ziz is Haydal.
It is.
It is Haydal. It's just an account change. I was saying, I was looking down at the SK team here from where we're casting from, and I was thinking, now I know they have Haydal, and that looks a lot like Haydal, but I hadn't actually spoken to the team yet today, so I made sure that that was indeed the fact. And yes, it is indeed the full SK Prime roster. And they looked strong in their last game. I wonder whether they'll look the same strong here, because that really is the question. A win here would put them in great standing for top of the group, and as we've already talked about, GSI desperately need this win.
It's go big or go home, pretty much. If they don't win this game, I think you said that we did a bit of quick maths, which is never a great position to be in as casters, trust me, but we were trying to figure this out, and if they don't win, they would have to rely on the other teams to do them a favor.
Yeah, I think they could just still qualify.
In a tie.
Just about.
Yeah.
Barely would they be able to qualify through, but that would be heavily dependent on results, and we've all seen what happens when a team depends on other teams for results. But we are into the loading screen here for our, I was going to say first game of the day, because it's my first game that I'm casting, but it's actually our fourth game of the day here in Group B. And it's, we're doing it a little bit backwards. Group B first, and then Group A. But all of the teams in the BYOC Hall are fighting hard to earn their spot alongside Ninjas in Pajamas, now alternate, former Tick, Trick and Duck, and Reason Gaming.
Formerly Meet Your Makers.
Yes, a lot of formers.
Yeah, that's kind of how the challenger scene works, though. I mean, we've had first-hand accounts of this time and time again, where just when you think a team's stable, they change everything up. But we are very nearly live onto the Rift here, ladies and gentlemen. GSI facing up against SK Gaming Prime. And there you go, you can see right now, blue team is going to be SK Gaming Prime, red team at GSI. And again, GSI, they're in trouble here.
Well, let's not count them out before we begin.
I mean in the group.
In the group, potentially. But, you know, every time you go into Summoner's Rift, it is, for the most part, an even game, unless you get counterpicked horribly. And I don't feel like either team has completely outpicked the other. I mean, both teams have very different strategies. SK is very much a brute force, in your face, get the ultimate combo off, whereas GSI is looking for that flank composition where Evelyn comes in from the side, Twitch cleans up, you have the tidal wave to keep everybody in place or keep everybody safe for disengage. So two very different team styles that, you know, it's interesting to see SK pull this kind of composition out now as opposed to perhaps later in the tournament. They feel confident and comfortable all at the same time in, you know, a team fight composition.
There you go, you just invented a word.
Comfortable.
Right there.
Got it.
I was going to ask you if you thought any early invades were going to kick off. SK Gaming Prime, they were kind of lurking with the intention to, then saw the ward go down. Like, there's no point, because they'll know we're coming. But instead, it looks like they're just going to pick up their own red. On the flip side, GSI will take that. Pretty standard opening. Yeah,
and that's the thing is, we are on the live server here. We had a couple of issues with, you know, Tournament Realm, but both are on the same patch anyway, so it doesn't really change that much with regards to that. And of course, ever since the trinket changes were made a little while back, that they were available earlier, you see that if the ward goes down, okay, that's going to deny pretty much any kind of invade from us. And both teams just going for that kind of defensive start to begin this game.
So it is going to be Orianna up against Lulu in the mid, as we just see Taiki now picking up his blue buff with ease. No lane switch-ups, so we are going to spot Graves and Thresh. Now, personally, I love Graves. Probably my favorite champion in the entire game. So to see him coming back to prominence over the last few weeks/months makes me a happy guy.
I played the hell out of him in Season 2 with everybody else, with Corki and Ezreal. Every single game was, you know, Corki, Ezreal, or Graves. Every single time. But, you know, he's been brought back in because the way that the lane has worked out a little bit in recent times. He does have a couple of limitations when it comes to actually pushing towers safely, though, against certain compositions. So we'll watch for that, just in case he gets caught out by a Nami bubble here and there. That's something you really have to be careful with, because if your quick draw is not fast enough, you're likely to die.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Or if at least not dying, you're going to be forced to flash.
Yeah.
Or use your heal. And in turn, rinse and repeat forward, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So top lane, Smitty J up against the Trundle of Mozilla. I'm wondering your opinions here on top lane. Who do you think should be coming out ahead?
That's an interesting question, because I was going to say it's going to depend on jungler ganks a little bit, and we may even be seeing our first one here. Is I actually don't feel like this is going to be a straight 1v1 for too long. Saying that, backs away. No actual engagement. And I mean, typically Jax is going to scale better, but Trundle does like to fight after level 6. So it kind of can become difficult around that level 6 mark for Jax, because as soon as Subjugate will steal away, like, you know, the resistances that Jax has, it can be a little bit difficult for him.
Alrighty. Well, seems that Evelyn definitely has half a mind to keep going to top. Death Sentence have landed at the bot lane. Ignite goes on Chrisland as well. He instantly uses his heal. A couple of summoners exchanged. And in terms of hit points, Idle just about coming out ahead there.
Yeah, you can see the pressure that's being applied by this Graves Thresh lane right now, that it's so difficult for GSI to step forward to try and get anything, and a quick buckshot here and there is really going to start tagging Chrisland, and you can see Zaitan from the side is just zoning out now and again, and it looks like top lane, Ilias may be looking for a gank, but he is going to find Taiki in the bush. Taiki's going to back away. Again, a lot of action around top lane, but none of it's actually converting into a gank here, and the junglers are just playing this very carefully, very cautiously, as a defensive kind of style here with their top laners, looking to counter gank rather than actually actively gank.
Yeah, it's like both junglers are hiding around with the idea of mutually assured destruction. If you go in, we will. And then all hell breaks loose, and it's difficult to call what will happen. But Taiki's still here. He's actually been engaging on Smitty J, who has flashed in. Is being chased down, though, and that's the leap strike, just about saving his life.
Yeah, it is. They got the flash, so it will be a gank deemed worth it there for SK Gaming Prime. It's just a case of rinsing and repeating that. They need to make sure they're now putting the pressure on up in that top lane. Try and just push Jax's late game further and further back. That's one of the only ways you can ever deal with the Jax is stop him from farming, stop him from getting his items, and just push his 2 items further and further back. Because until you get Trinity Force, or at least Bilgewater Cutlass, Trinity Force and Blade of the Rune King, or at least Bilgewater, you really aren't that strong on Jax. It really takes those 2 items to be completed for you to be that dueling monster.
It's also important to note that, yes, they got rid of Jax's flash, but Mozilla flashed in as well.
Yeah.
So both of them have no flash. I would say that with Jax having Leap Strike, he's going to be more difficult to lock down, although I guess Trundle does have the pillar.
Yeah, that is true. The Leap Strike, we saw it come out to great effect there on that gank. So that is actually something to keep an eye on. And again, I'm kind of looking towards our junglers here, maybe to make a bit more of an impact in that top lane. But I think Taiki has spotted what the Fox out here as he's crossing towards the dragon. Just put down a pink ward. And we'll be able to clear that one out, but might have to be careful here because there's a lot of damage is going to come from that Lulu, even though it's this early on.
Yeah, that is true. A lot of damage firing out. And Orianna, to be fair, is doing a nice job of farming. 50 at 6.5 minutes, that's pretty on target. I mean, obviously you'd want the 10 or so per minute, but ultimately at the end of the day, is doing a nice job. 8 ahead of Lulu. Nothing to really write home about between them. Taiki, he's very aggressive. He's very active in this jungle. He's constantly trying to make something happen.
He is really trying to get into these lanes, and it's actually kind of a product of the fact that typically when you're playing Evelynn, you have to assume that a lot of your camps are warded. So you see a lot of players like Super Hot Cruise Impaler going very, very aggressive on Evelynn in the jungle just to get that early start rather than farming up. She just benefits a lot better from an aggressive play style if you can actually get into the lanes. And the ward actually just died on the Wolves. That would have been a really nice ward for SK to spot out where Evelynn is as the blue buffs are coming up. So they kind of have an idea where she is, but it's nice to have that confirmation.
So Lulu will be picking up that blue buff alongside the help of Taiki, and meanwhile at top, Smitty J is just putting a bit of harassment down, and it's a difficult lane to pick up a kill in a 1v1, I have to feel, Jackson Trundle. You're not expecting fireworks until you get that jungle intervention.
Yeah, it really only is after level 6 that the lane starts becoming a little bit more aggressive, perhaps, because now that Trundle has Subjugate, he's pretty much going to force Jax away from any fight, because the way you trade with Trundle is you drop to around about half health while trading against your opponent, lull them into a false sense of security, hit the Subjugate, get the health back, kill your opponent. It's a little bit more difficult to do against Jax just because you have the counter-strike. You have a lot of damage that just comes from, a lot of the sources from Empower and stuff like that. That it can be a little tricky to do, but it is possible. And we're going to see, I would imagine, Mozilla try and start baiting Smitty J into those fights more and more.
Speaking of Mozilla, triple Doran's Blades. A pretty interesting opening. What do you make of that?
I mean, Doran's Blades, everybody has always said about how efficient Doran's Blade has been, and I guess it depends on, I didn't actually note his back timings, so we'll see how it works in this fight.
Yes, Smitty J's being chased down. There's the Subjugate and the Agony's Embrace as well. This time around, is he going to be able to survive? No. First blood goes in for Mozilla.
Yeah, the Doran's Rings gave him that extra damage to get that, rather than, perhaps the defensive item starts that we have seen a couple of times out of Trundle, sometimes Sun, Fire Cape. Other times you do see that Blade of the Rune King first, so this would have been interesting to keep track of if I'd have seen his back timings. I think that might have something to do with it a little bit here. But SK are going to take this opportunity to take down the Dragon in exchange for that kill, and I think SK will be pretty happy about that one.
Yep, so Dragon down for the side of GSI. And we mentioned previously the kind of pressure that's on their shoulders. Really need this win. So they're starting off in the right way, but it's pretty interesting that they have the first kill and still find themselves behind on gold.
Yeah, it is, the getting that dragon really will help SK keep that lead for themselves. So it's not too surprising on that one. The first blood, you know, is a nice little bonus that the GSI would have got, but as for overall control, I'm going to take a look at the gold now carried on each play. Yeah, you look down the lanes, there's a good couple of hundred gold between each player on each team. So, you know, there is a bit of a disparity here in the CS as well.
Yep, that's a very good point. Looking down the list, yeah, pretty much every single player is a good 10 or so CS above their counterpart. And we spoke a lot about the bot lane between Crystalline, Hiva, and of course on the other side, Zeiten and Heidel. Hasn't been quite as explosive as we were imagining. It's been more of a farming frenzy down there so far, and Graves is certainly having the upper hand, 15 CS up.
He's also just got a pretty important item that is just going to add to his burst. The BF sword's going to make sure he's chunking through the damage, but if he gets caught, ooh, has to be careful there. Do they know? Taiki is going to reveal.
He is going to reveal right now. Meanwhile, at top lane, action's going down as well. Box was popped from Zeiten. And, oh, he actually has caught the death sentence. I was going to say, they probably don't want to jump on top of that. It was a 2v3 situation. Gilius has now found himself Perk, and Tidal Wave comes on through, does land Shockwave as well. That's a lot of damage down onto Perks. He's been finished off. Collateral damage comes through, but there's the Aqua Prison as well. How much damage can Taiki do? The answer is enough to pick up Heidel before falling himself. And that will be a 2-for-1 trade in SK Gaming Prime's favor.
2-for-1 in SK Prime's favor, but let's take a look. Who did the kills actually end up going to? It was Trundle and Evelyn. There was I was going to say the teleport was just used there, so no, Trundle had a kill earlier. I'm going crazy here. First game of the day for me. No, kill went to Evelyn, that was on to Graves, and then we had 2 out, one from Jarvan, one from Orianna. So important that Orianna got that kill there, as I, you know, put all of the thoughts back in my brain after they all just kind of spilled out at once. But let's see where that leads us, because Orianna now has that Athene's Unholy Grail. That's a pretty important item there for that cooldown reduction that she's going to get, and will allow her to, you know, just send out those shockwaves even more often, as that's really a big part of the engage tools here for SK. We saw it a little bit there, but early on in the game, doesn't really do a lot of damage, was more to just kind of disrupt Lulu, chip a little bit of health off, and look for the kill there. But, you know, SK are in a good situation here. They got about 1,000 gold lead, and we will see whether they can look to position for the next dragon, because they're pushing up a lot in the bottom lane, and typically that signifies a lot of that bottom side map control. You end up just kind of naturally gaining a lot of dragon control with a lane like Thresh Graves. It just likes to push all the time.
Yeah, they are a very push-centric bot lane. They like to push out with the buckshot, of course, which is Graves' go-to ability. You can just keep spamming that one out. And already WhatDeFox is certainly getting the upper hand on Lulu, actually pushing that lane already. Lulu's going to go ahead and pick up the blue buff, and doing so is going to allow that mid tower to take a few more shots. Nothing too serious, though.
Nothing too serious at all, and you know, the towers are starting to lose health around the map. Looking up at top lane, here you go. Mozilla's baited out Smitty J. Is it going to be a good fight though? Because the Subjugate has been popped, but look at this, Mozilla is just losing out.
And he could actually be falling. There's the flash and a leap strike straight afterwards. A straight up 1v1, and Smitty J coming out ahead.
I'm wondering, Smitty J has actually recently finished the Ninja Tabi, I believe, and I'm wondering whether just the fact that Trundle wasn't anticipating the extra resistance that he had there. But again, it's about picking your battles a lot better than that for Mozilla. I don't think he'd done enough damage to Smitty J before he actually engaged, and there's a shockwave.
Oh my goodness, the burst is massive, and that is going to be Gilius picking up the pieces. Double ultis thrown in there. Bot lane though, all hack action is kicking off. Hiva, nice tidal wave, but there's the flash in from Smitty J. Is it enough to actually secure that kill? No, Hiva just about survives by the skin of his teeth, and Crystalline will push them back. Now Taiki is behind enemy lines, Zeiten giving chase, also Jarvan from the red buff area. Here comes the dark passage from Zeiten. They're desperate to catch up to Taiki. Does get poked in the backside, and is going to be chased away, actually. Could very well survive this one.
Ooh, that should be enough. That should now be enough. Actually, flash out. There we go.
Does get the kill, but I don't think he was expecting to use the flash to do so.
No, I don't think he was at all. And I believe during that, mid lane actually fell to WhatDeFox as well. So they've started really ramping up their gold. It was only a couple of minutes ago that I said it was 1,000. Now it's up to nearly, well, 3,500 gold. Trying to do fast maths on cast. We've always said never do maths, but try and keep it simple. But Mozilla is constantly pushing up in this top lane, and you know, he's got to now try and engage with Smitty J, not under his turret. That's not where he wants to engage him at all. But you look at the health difference, and Smitty J is just going to force the issue here because he knows Mozilla does not want to trade. Meanwhile, in the lower side jungle, Heaver trying to get wards down, almost got caught out there. Has to be very, very careful here because I believe Dragon is due up soon. Sadly, there is a slight bug on live client that Dragon timer doesn't always show up properly, but I believe it's due up fairly soon.
Yeah, I think so too. Maybe in the next minute or so. But we are going to have to watch how this one plays off. And yeah, Smitty J is certainly pushing it into a new gear. He is not allowing any respite for Mozilla, who's constantly having to deal with that onslaught. You can see players now starting to congregate around the Dragon area. Has spawned, is very much live right now. Again, Aqua Prison's landed. Oh, that death sentence was close.
It was close, and who knew if you cast and play a lot of League of Legends and learn 6 minutes. But here comes the teleport.
Yep, that's going to be the teleport going in. Zayden's constantly being slowed down. It doesn't look too good from right now. Aqua Prism actually misses. Uncharacteristic for Heaver, but Graves at the back is just smashing them down. Finally, the kill goes down. Oh, the shockwave damage is huge. It's not enough to pick up too many kills, but they have got the double now on Orianna. Gonna get the triple as well. The Quadra is very much a real possibility. Quadra has been picked up. I don't think the Penta's on the cards, though. Although Smitty J is going to be chasing afterwards. No Penta, but a massive Quadra kill from Orianna.
A massive, massive Quadra kill, and we said this in Champion Select. If they get that shockwave off, Jax is going to come in and clean up. It was actually Orianna that was doing the cleanup, and to be honest, it's about 20 minutes earlier than I was expecting that composition to really start hitting its peak, and that is a massive passage of play that results in a Dragon going down, and this is very quickly going in SK Gaming's favor.
And 5-0 Orianna. How much gold? Over 2.4k. So the needlessly large rod has already been built up. When he goes back, could easily finish off the Rabadon's death cap. Like, no problems at about 17 minutes through the game.
Yeah, not a problem with that at all. And I believe I'm taking a look at the gold here. Jax has just finished his Blade of the Ruined King, so still quite a way off that Trinity Force. Has a long time for him to get back into the game. But one of the actual interesting things about the way this composition is going to work is with Orianna being so far ahead, she's going to do so much damage that it actually makes Jax's role somewhat less important. Because Jax is now not going to be a focus, and in any fight where you ignore Jax, he will destroy you.
Yeah.
That is what Jax likes to do, is just make you ignore him. He's not going to be ignored here, though, because there's a pillar, and here comes Taiki from the side.
Yeah, they want to try and shut this down before it gets rolling, but Taiki is finding out the hard way just how strong Jax is. Should be able to survive this one, but Smitty J is not giving up. He's like a dog with a bone, jumps back on again, does get the kill! Oh my goodness, that Empower did a lot more damage than I think Taiki gave it credit for. He does fall as a result, but now the engage in mid lane from GSI onto What the Fox. They desperately want that shutdown goal, but not today. Dark Passage comes good.
I really don't think Taiki was expecting that damage to come out from Smitty J then. That really should have been a pretty easy kill onto Smitty J, but the fact that he just got that position on Evelyn, took so much of her health down, and risked himself. I think in the 1-for-1 trade there, he'll actually be very happy with the fact that he just went 1-for-1 in a 2v1 situation. And every time they're now giving Jax gold, provided he's not losing too many deaths at the same time, every kill is just going to get him closer and closer to that point where he can compete with the Trinity Force.
And the other interesting point as well is that Jax can now split push, and they have a fed Orianna. So if you engage on her, they can easily turn that back round. I mean, in the previous fight, you saw yourself, the kind of burst damage that came in thick and fast. So that will free Jax up again. Taiki's been caught in no man's land. Death Sentence does actually miss. There's the Cataclysm, and Orianna just beasting down with the burst.
And I'm wondering here where they're going to go from this. They can take mid-inner tower, perhaps. It looks like their map movement is kind of angling towards the Baron, and I'm thinking maybe that their smite was down. It was possible, perhaps, with a Blade of the Ruined King Jax and such a strong Orianna, but they had to be careful from something like this, as Krislin, in from the side, takes a massive buckshot.
Did a bit of damage himself, but Dark Passage is going to be coming to his aid. And wow, Heidel playing super aggressive, is in the front lines, not the best of positions, but there's the box. Here comes the shockwave as well. Graves has fallen. That's a pretty nice scalp to claim from GSI, but they can't afford to stay in this fight any longer. Evelyn's not into position to do much from this situation, and Perks is going to fall as well. So again, 1-for-1 trade. That's with Graves dying first.
It is, but the thing is, Orianna got the shockwave off on Lulu, and from there the damage was so great that Lulu ended up falling, and GSI really didn't want to fight that in the end of things, even though Taiki came back. Taiki's actually very aggressively trying to take his own jungle when there's so many members of SK around that they're now forcing the issue with the tower, and they really can, because there's nothing that's going to stop them here.
Yeah, with a Blade of the Rune King Jax, that tower is not going to last long. So it has already been picked up. 4 towers to 1 so far in this game, and SK Gaming Prime's favor. 20 minutes on the board. It seems like a much longer game than that with all the action that we've had.
It really does. The fact that it's a 7-0-2 Orianna is kind of taking this game a little bit later in our minds than it actually is, alongside a Jax who is starting to really hurt when he's outputting that damage. So, I mean, the saving grace that they should have for GSI is the fact that they have a Twitch who is now out of the laning phase, but he's come out of the laning phase and he's behind on CS, has a kill over his lane opponent, but the problem is he now has to try and get this kind of wombo combo from the rest of his team where they're all grouped and that rat-a-tat-tat is going to really start spraying down on them, but SK are the team that have the team composition, so now they're just really looking for picks for GSI, and SK, as of yet, aren't giving them any picks, and I mean, here's the attempted Baron.
They have very good Baron clear at 21 minutes through the game, and on top of that, got great team fighting potential. Look at how quickly that's going down. Tidal Wave has been shot across from Hiver. Can they follow this up? Shockwave on top of Baron will secure it, of all things. And Heaven in the front line is just getting punished hard. Mozilla going to hop Subjugate, and also the Blade of the Rune King backing on away. And the Barons, SK Gaming Prime, are relentless. They're going for the jugular.
It's interesting that they must have seen that shockwave because they had the ward in the pit. Cataclysm over the wall.
Oh, Gilly is super aggressive. No one's really there to follow up, but he has stopped them long enough. Randuin's Omen on top of that as well. They forced GSI away to potentially push through the mid.
That was a really interesting shockwave. I don't know whether it was 100% necessary to secure the Baron there, but it worked nonetheless. However, here comes the engage.
Going in once again, and that's what we're talking about, that ruthless aggression that SK Gaming Prime bring to the table. That's going to be a kill and an inhibitor tower and the inhibitor to follow up. Huge passage of play for SK, and they can now back on away. They must be sat on chunks and chunks of gold. I don't even want to imagine 3,000 on Orianna, as if you didn't have enough items already.
Yeah, she's pretty much going to pick up a Void Staff there, I'd imagine, and, you know, whatever other items that she really desires. But that was an SK Gaming Prime that didn't have their ultimates available, but Smitty J is probably cut out here.
Or is he? He can turn this one back around on Krislin. Krislin, oh, he does manage to survive. And Perks, they do get their man. And actually, that's a pretty significant kill.
It is, but at the same time, SK just took Dragon.
Yeah.
So it means that GSI from that pick have pretty much one option here. They can go to mid and try and push that in. The wave is not at the tower, so it's very difficult. Or, I guess the other option would be follow that the big wave in the top lane, but that would be incredibly risky. They'd have to pass so many wards from SK to get there that it really isn't a realistic option. So they actually got nothing from that pick. They didn't get a shutdown. They didn't get an objective. They didn't get any real map control from it either, because look at how many wards still remain in the topside jungle for SK. So it's a nice pick, but it's not a pick that is going to get GSI back in this game.
Yeah. Well, let's see if Twitch can use some of that gold benefit, because right now he's a long way behind Graves, I'd have to say, in terms of damage, and Graves must have quite a bit of gold as well on top of that, I would imagine. So you can see that here comes Gilius again. He's a very aggressive player. I mean, he's constantly wanting to make plays. The question is, though, is it always worth it, though, Stress? Because if you go in super ham and no one's following you up, you can actually put your team in danger.
I think at this point, they have all their ultimates, they're 10,000 gold up. This kind of engage, I would imagine, would favor SK if the Cataclysm Shockwave is right, but we're waiting for it. Nothing yet.
There's the Shockwave at the back lines, and Orianna will secure the kill onto Nami. Mozilla is doing a nice job of keeping everyone at bay, but look at that burst. That was a half HP Trundle and goes down the blink of an eye. 9-0. What the Fox on Orianna. And this is terrifying. If you're GSI at this point, you just put your head down and hope for the best. You brace yourself for impact.
I thought you were actually saying his, implied name for a second there, because I was going to say that's what I'd be saying if it was a 9-0-3 Orianna at 24 minutes while Smitty J's pushing in a top lane tower. However, it's bottom lane inhibitor that's under attack.
Oh, going back in once again. Heidel very nearly gets himself a kill. Taiki survives somehow. Oh my goodness. But all things considered, top tower's fallen, bottom inhibitor's about to fall. There we go, it's just been destroyed. I mean, this is them on life support. They're circling the drain, and Smitty can just go 1v3s all day, every day. He's picked up one. There's the command protect as well from Orianna, jumping in for seconds. Taiki is a hungry guy right now. And Heidel in the back line with the buckshot will just about miss, and there's a surrender vote. Can't really blame them at the end of the day.
No, I can't fault them on that decision. I mean, it's difficult enough being under the hammer when you've got all of your inhibitor towers and the inhibitors falling. Then add to that the fact that Orianna is pretty much one comboing out your Twitch with a QW.